call this meeting to order of Lake Country Classical Academy on July 26, 2023 at 6:07 p.m. Now, notice of this regular open board meeting ran in the Waukesha Freeman on July 22nd on the LCCA website and on both LCCA campus front entrances. Please let the roll call show that all LCCA board members are present with the exception of Taryn Whipple. And I'd like to start out by reading the LCCA mission. Our mission is to train the minds and improve the hearts of our young people through content-rich classical education in the liberal arts and sciences with instruction in the principles of moral character and civic virtue. Please rise and join me in saying the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would someone like to make a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So motion.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving tonight's agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay? And the motion passes. On to Citizens Forum, which this forum is an opportunity for stakeholders of the school to offer their views on any topic, and comments are limited to 2 minutes each. I don't believe anyone filled out a comment form for tonight, so there are no public comments tonight. So we will move on to the consent agenda. Would someone like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay. Any comments or any discussion about what's listed here? We'll go into each one individually. All in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. So first item on the consent agenda are the minutes from the June 28th regular board meeting and closed session. Everyone should have received a copy of that. If anyone have any comments or changes to those, in addition to what changes already made, we're on the website, by the way. Okay. All right, moving on to the school leader report.
You have a hard copy of the school leader report in front of you, but also received the report and all additional documents on July 20th for your review. And the very first item to note is the last two performance measure goals through our DPI grant. We fell just short of the target on both of those, which is the forward exam results. Forward exam results are not yet out for public review, so they have not yet been posted to our website. However, individual student reports were mailed this week to put in the mail today, Wednesday? Yes, put in the mail today, and parents should be receiving each of their students' reports as soon as the Postal Service gets it to them. That performance measure chart was submitted due by the end of this month, but we got it in advance and it has already been approved with no questions or issues to the other goals that you saw that we met with flying colors. So we're pleased to move on into the next year of the charter school startup grant. You'll see enrollment summaries on the next page as to how many students we started with this past year, how many students withdrew in the first semester, how many withdrew in the second semester, and how many of those positions were backfilled from the wait list. And then that's how we got to the year-end totals by grade level. Then you'll also see the projections for enrollment for the upcoming school year. Even in the short amount of time from when I emailed you this report on the 20th until today, numbers have fluctuated some, so next month's report will likely look a little bit different again, but you can see Our projection capacity is 580 without any students on the wait list in 9th and 10th. We will fall a little short of that, but you'll see later on in the report that our new enrollment targets, I'm sorry, not later on, previously under the enrollment section, our new charter enrollment target is to make sure that we have the average of the actual September count and the January count divided by the projected budgeted full-time equivalent to be greater than or equal to 95%. So we're definitely on target to reach and attain that standard or that goal set by our new charter authorizer. Additionally, we completed the DPI required WISE staff audit, and on June 20th we received confirmation from the DPI that our audit was complete and all faculty and staff that are instructional and required to have a teaching license with the state of Wisconsin are in good standing, and we had no errors and no rejections on that report. So our staffing audit is complete and approved. Additionally, you had the chance to review the faculty and staff spring survey results, and the administration team has reviewed those as well and taken into account the results and the feedback that we received from faculty. We do still have a couple vacancies. I'm still interviewing. We still have positions posted on the WECAN website, which is the Wisconsin Educators Career something site where all education positions are posted in the state. And then we're also using Indeed, and I have a request out to update our website as things fluctuate. So hopefully we'll be able to secure those final positions that need to be filled shortly. We have also reposted the facilities assistant position. You might recall it was originally on the plan, and then I determined that it maybe wasn't going to work, and then our per pupil aid increased, and so it's back on the plan because we really could use another set of hands. The work this summer is getting done by Peter Knapp, and we're utilizing the upper school math teacher, Dave Kazurek, as an assistant over these summer months, and then when he goes back to teaching, we'll be a little short-handed. So hopefully we'll find somebody to take on that position. The financial reports were posted in the SharePoint for your review. You'll note that the salaries and benefits budget was about 3.8 for the 22-23 school year, and the actual to date as of June is 3.5 million, and salaries and benefits were processed to hit in the fiscal year 2023, so there are no accruals to calculate. We took care of that before the fiscal year end. So you may have noticed that we came in at 91% of the total budget year to date on salaries and benefits. Just be aware that retirement contributions are being taken now since we rolled out that retirement plan. We have concluded the preliminary audit on June 29th, and that all went really well. We're ahead of the game from where we were for last year's audit, and Lori Kari worked with our auditing firm to kind of get things established so that they can return the week of September 18th. And of course, no reports are final until that final audit is complete in September, but as of right now, things are looking good. The other thing to note is we reviewed our liability insurance and our insurance coverage on the whole, and we did, after conversation with Bridge Church and at their request to increase our insurance coverage, we moved to retain some umbrella policy coverage, and that $5 million umbrella also extends to the directors and officers limit. So there's $6 million in the D&O coverage, which was a target to discuss at this board meeting. And based on our insurance agent's review and our own review of the policies that we have in place, and with that umbrella policy increase, we feel very confident in the insurance. We've also updated the insurance coverage to extend to the Waukesha County Executive and all of the entities of that institution, so that all is covered and falls under our policies through the agreement, the charter agreement we signed. That is a requirement, and we've taken care of that already. You'll also recall our conversation last month regarding the approved adjustment to the grading scale and the need to then share to you kind of the grade report for the year end with that new calculation. We did retroactively apply that slight change, and the new report of GPAs for the 9th and 10th grade students is included. You can see the first chart shows, I think, a little bit in a more appropriate way for us all to see and understand the scope of the 9th and 10th graders as the high school. And then the following two charts show 9th grade broken out and 10th grade broken out into the different GPA score ranges. So after the retroactive application of the grading scale adjustment that you all approved last month, we have 7 students currently with a 4.0. Our projections for the Student Services Department incoming this fall are there for you to see. Again, that is still a little bit in fluctuation as we have had some students withdraw, and now we're in process with the next students on the wait list, and we need to get through the verification process to understand if there are any IEPs to add or 504s to consider. Without school in attendance, I do not, or in effect, I don't have to talk about discipline or attendance or athletics at this time, so I'm just kind of skipping through those subject areas onto the family spring survey results. You had access to that as well, and hopefully noticed that the administration took time to kind of cull through all of the data that we received via that report, and I'll just share the major takeaways that we gleaned from parent responses. We had about 60% of families submit a response to that spring survey, and we're walking away with the understanding that we need to maintain the curricular rigor along with continued dialogue with and education of parents on the value of the rigor and the high expectations, as well as the teacher-led instruction, as opposed to project-based learning, which we had some inquiries as to that approach. We also understand that we need to continue providing students who need it the opportunity for and support to gain the basic tools of learning that they might be lacking. So we were actually quite pleased, this is a side note, a lot of the feedback in the survey, we already had things in the works to address those. So we were pleased to feel like our pulse and what we're understanding and seeing aligned a lot with the information that the parents provided. So one of the things, for example, we had already intended to do is we're working in a study skills course for the first semester for the 7th graders. As they transition from 6th grade to this building, they'll have 2 days a week of study skills instruction for the first semester. The second semester, that will switch to keyboarding, so we recognize the need for typing skills, and we're implementing that in 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. But I will be teaching study skills first semester to 7th graders. Additionally, we understand that we need to value and appreciate, along with our parents, because they certainly do, they value and appreciate the current team of teachers and staff, and we see it as our job and a high priority to work to continue to attract and retain such high quality faculty and staff in order to fulfill the mission of the school. There was feedback on discipline and the need for it to be consistent and focused on the individual who digresses from expectations rather than a whole. And then there were some feedback also underscoring our own administrative assessment that policies require consistent enforcement. So we have some things in place for the return of teachers and staff in August to fulfill and shore up our discipline procedures and our continuity across all grade levels, kindergarten through 12th, in a couple different areas. We also, the parents are incredibly pleased with the focus that we place on virtues and the development of moral character, and so through their praise, we recognize a high priority to make sure we're maintaining that focus and continuing implementation of it throughout the grade levels. And then there's always feedback about a desire to have more community building experiences, and so as an administrative team, we recognize the goal to pursue and generate some of those opportunities through the Legacy Committee most likely, and we see the idea of creating traditions within that, so certain events or certain activities become LCCA community traditions that happen annually or every other year or whatever it might be. So after reading through and calculating, you also received in the survey sort of the statistical approach of how many comments were based on what different major subject area, if you will. And after talking through all of that and meeting as a team, those were the major takeaways that we have. Moving on, in your report, you know that the Hillsdale Summer Conference took place at the end of June, and I'm happy to report that we had 20 employees voluntarily attend. So there's no cost to room or board if you attend the Hillsdale Conference, but it is outside of contractual obligations, and the cost of getting there, driving there, transportation is on the employee, and so therefore it is a voluntary activity, and to have 20 of our staff members attend is really, really exciting. Additionally, the other exciting component to that is Hillsdale extended invitations to me, Mr. Wagner, Mrs. Santella, Ms. Joy, and Mrs. Frona to present at the different sessions. So Mr. Wagner had some math sessions at all three of the opportunities of the sessions allowed. I sat on a leader panel in the second session for school leaders. Mrs. Santella presented on physical education and the idea of strengthening the body along with the mind in a classical way in the upper school session. And then Ms. Joy and Ms. Frona presented, Ms. Joy presented on bringing history alive in the elementary. And she gave her whole presentation in her queen gown that she wears when she teaches about taxation previous to the Revolutionary War in first grade. And then Ms. Frona, our elementary music teacher, presented on song and dance in elementary music. And so it was really exciting to have that many of our own faculty and staff invited by Hillsdale to present as experts at their conference. Lastly, on your back page, a couple facilities updates. Due to the nature of the parking lot, you got a beautiful view of the updates the church has done on their wing. The basement here is still a little bit of a danger zone. There's a painter down there this week. We're waiting for the carpet. The portable divider is on back order, so we're looking at what our plan B might be, because the two classrooms that we're constructing down there will have a removable wall, and so we're looking to figure out how to make do for a week or two without that in place quite yet. But otherwise, things are coming along. The gym floor and the sound system are on back order as well. The floor is not here, and so we have a meeting with Bridge Church on Tuesday of next week, just to kind of talk through what the timing might be and whether or not that will actually get accomplished before school starts, or if they'll wait until our first kind of long break when the building is empty. The upper elementary building at East is also coming along. Excuse me, the transition structure connecting the original view to the new 4 classrooms is built and enclosed. They were putting in insulation today in that structure. The electric is all in. The classrooms look great. Where the back doors, we shifted the doors on the original to be the closure on the far end now. Those have been installed, so the building is secure. There's some question about the lights in the new units. They are not on an they are not on the, I'm not gonna have the right terminology, but they don't stay on, like every other should stay on all night long for security, and they don't have what they need. And so they're gonna need to make some updates to code on those light fixtures before we'll be allowed occupancy. But we are on track for early August to be complete and getting it cleaned and slowly but surely moving things in. So we keep comparing everything to last summer, and we're way ahead of the game without needing contingencies. I know, really,
Yeah,
maybe you shouldn't say it yet, but we're really excited about the stage of everything and the process and progress of everything. And we're on track in all regards. So the last few things are action items, but that concludes my leadership report.
Any questions for Margaret?
I've got a couple things. One is just, I want to make an observation. I want you to tell me if it's accurate.
Okay.
So on pages 2 and 3, where you have the 2023 enrollment withdrawals additions kind of juxtaposed against what the next year is looking for, it looks like we are up 1 to 5 students in every grade, the exception being 5th grade, which is a 1 student discrepancy, and 9th, which is a couple students, and there's still time. Is that accurate?
We are, from what we closed with, that's accurate.
Right.
From the original capacity, we're the same in all grade levels except 3rd, because we increased to
Right.
3 sections.
Okay.
Just a quick comment on the, just for the record, the results of the family survey that you discussed will be shared in minutes on the
Yes,
website.
they're linked in will be posted on the website.
Yep.
So this was other observation on the 9th and 10th grade breakout on GPA.
Mm-hmm.
So you said 7 4.0s,
Yes.
and I'm adding 38 and 24 and doing quick math in my head, which is never smart for me. Is that roughly 10-11% total?
38 and 24, 62 students total?
Between those 2 grades?
Yes.
And if 7 are, that's about 10-11%?
Yes.
Does that sound right?
Sure. Anybody have a phone?
So I only say that, I don't know, and I know we're new, but is that what we want? Do we have a target for that? Or are we just kind of benchmarking this right now, baselining it all?
I think we're gonna need to, all of my answers to that question are now different, that we've adjusted
Right.
the grading scale, and so we are in conversations as an administrative team to really make sure that though we've made this adjustment, it doesn't swing too far in the opposite direction where we have elevated grades. So
Right.
as for right now, that's appropriate. It's a little high, but
I concur with you. I think, if you're seeing 15, 20, 30% of students with 4.0s,
Yeah.
so just an anecdote that I shared with you. I have a friend who resigned from a public school not far from here, and one of the reasons he resigned is because they reduced the threshold for an A to 80%, 80, and the threshold for an F to 50%. So what happened was all these kids are on honor roll, of course.
Right.
Like 2/3 of the class is on honor roll, and they're gonna just get mowed down by life when they graduate. So yeah, that is a school you've all heard of, not far from here. So I like erring on the side of, and rigor, not to the point where we're demoralizing students. It has to be achievable, but I saw that and I was happy it wasn't higher.
If I'm looking at last month's report, the mean GPA in high school was 2.76. achievements increased to 2.86 as a result of the change. So most of the grading scale was from 3.0 and above, below 3.0 grade didn't really change at all. Of understanding it, right?
Correct.
So we had roughly a 4% increase in the mean GPA for high school students by this change. But to your point, Margaret, I think we are still benchmarking. So
Yeah.
comparing like year 1 versus year 2, I think that generally tells you how we're doing.
And then over time, see where it levels off. Right. Yeah,
Yeah,
that
our
makes
most
sense.
accurate statistics will be once we have a full 9th, 10th, 11th grade.
Sure.
Yeah, once we have a full 4 grades.
That's fair.
And a year or 2 of data comparison, that will really be the best way to understand what it is we're shooting for. But we are keeping tabs on it as we get there.
That's all I have. I don't want to bogart anybody else.
I just want to make sure on the authorizer goal of 95%, I would just want to make sure I understand that right. So we want to be greater than or equal to, or I should say we need to be greater than or equal to 95% to count in September and then January. So our
The average of that
So-
needs to be greater than or equal to 95% over the number we budget for.
So 580 is September and 566 is January, the 2% attrition. You just take those numbers times 95% basically, right? That would be,
Compared to the enrollment number that we budget for, which is 564. 66, I can't recall. Questions. Yeah, relative to what we're budgeted for, not
Okay.
relative to capacity.
just to add on to your comment about the family survey question, you provided a lot of great color commentary on takeaways, corrective action type of things. Is that going to be included in the minutes along with the just the report itself? I mean, I wrote as fast as I could.
It's all in the report that was linked in the minutes
Oh,
to
it is,
you,
okay.
so it's
It's
all,
all within that.
yeah, you all have that.
Okay,
So
got it.
it's all within the report.
Are there, I guess, a follow-up question on that would be specific to the disciplinary changes. Is the handbook that we approved last month take into account any changes that you're going to make related to disciplinary
The handbook
changes?
is the standard.
Yeah.
It's the actions and the follow through on the part of the teachers to uphold that were the
So there's no-
techniques and the strategies.
So there's no changes to the language of the handbook that are necessary, it's just enforcement? Okay.
With respect to the survey, and there's a lot of great information, and it's easy to wormhole, like there's so much stuff. Thinking big picture, are there any specific opportunities, aggregate, that came out of that you're like, oh, this is a real opportunity for us? Like big picture. Like there's whenever you do research, you get some stuff, yeah, I kind of figured I'd see that. Then there's always, oh, I didn't think of that, or I didn't see that. Is there anything that surprised you as, oh yeah, that's something we could pay attention to, or an opportunity for us to get stronger, or anything like that?
I don't know, in our conversations, there wasn't anything that was too out of the box as to what we were expecting. But there were some specific comments regarding specific teachers that were interesting, and I think the takeaway is we may need to do a better job of communicating so that parents and families don't make assumptions and then set their stake in the ground on that assumption, because their assumptions are sometimes erroneous. So to avoid misconceptions that are being discussed in the broader community, we need to make sure we're communicating very clear in advance to try to avoid those.
And there are some teachers who can be more proactive about that.
Right.
Got it.
Yeah.
That makes sense. When you mentioned discipline and the consistent application of discipline, I smiled only because on another board I am, this has been an issue, and there's a perception, and sometimes perception is reality, sometimes it's just perception, that, well, so-and-so broke this code, but their parents gave a lot to the school, so they were allowed to coast, and it's just food for thought, just as like sometimes what people assume, and if it's true, of course, it needs to be stopped, but that's a very common, where I don't think we're special at all in that way on that issue.
Holding children, adolescents, accountable to an expectation is a large percentage of the job. And it needs to be, from room to room, teacher to teacher. Our goal is that students understand their expectation is the same.
Regardless,
exactly. And so that's some of our operational procedures will hopefully prosper that idea.
On the faculty and staff survey, once again, 45 participate. That seems like a pretty good participation rate for the survey.
Yes, if you take out administrators, so myself, Dr. Wozniak, Mr. Wagner, and Ms. Kari, we're down to 51 employees,
Okay.
so 46 out of 51.
90% of that sounds pretty good. I think that was better than the mid-year report.
I'd have to go back and see what the feedback was. The mid-year, the timing of our surveys we're also reviewing. It's hard to send out a survey in December, and then it's hard to send it out in January when we come back. Teachers don't, it's not a really opportune time for a teacher, right? It's a hectic push toward the holiday break, and then it's the return. So the mid-year survey is, the timing of that could be tweaked possibly. So we're considering that.
If you don't mind me plagiarizing your question, Tom,
not at all.
and insert faculty staff survey, big picture, are there any big picture type of takeaways?
There were no surprises on their responses. I also think it has to do with timing. Like it feels a little bit, I think, for faculty and staff like a quick to-do item.
Check
And
the
so
boxes.
there's submit. So again, we're looking at revising not just the timing, but the format a little bit. We'll see if we can't glean just as much information, but have it feel less time consuming.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess one last question, sorry. For the new gym over there, the new gym floor.
They're just covering up the tiles that are on there with
Yeah.
the wood vinyl laminate,
Oh,
hopefully, if it gets in.
Right.
But
That'll be nice.
they're talking about postponing if it's too delayed.
Right, so. Well, they're making a lot of investment here, that's great.
Okay. Thank you very much. So moving into action items, and actually the first thing listed here you covered, right?
Yep, I did.
So we had the LCCA Spring Family staff of survey results. So you're right. I'm sorry about that. You're on. Go back up a little bit. Sorry, there are two more items. Yep, treasurer's report.
Okay. We'll make it short and sweet. So June cash on hand came in pretty close to what was projected the prior month, just a little bit below 1.7 million. So that's about $1 million higher than we were at this time last year. Cash projections.
Okay, can we just stop and say that's awesome?
Yeah.
Like, savor that.
Yes.
Could you repeat that?
Here.
Year over year, we're how much more?
About $1 million, maybe not quite $1 million, maybe 960 or 70,000.
All right. Streamers are in order, but that's just that's a big deal in this climate.
I'm just reporting the numbers.
That's awesome.
I think you had a lot more to do with it, but the team did.
Yeah. Right. Agreed. Cash projections, as you know, we do rolling 6-month outlook on cash. That's being updated to account for the increase for pupil state aid, as well as the expenditures for U 2.0. But at a high level, we're going up from $9,542 per student budgeted for the year to $11,385. So almost, I guess it'd be a little over $1,800 a student. So on a budget of $564, that's almost $1 million. So if you're looking out 6 months, there's 2 state aid payments. So we have about $500,000 more revenue coming in, and depending on where the final budget is,
Right.
We'll see, what other expenses it might be. But we'll have, I think, if I remember right, it's $300,000 for VU 2.0. So we should be like a net $200,000 up in the first half, approximately. So that would put our, if nothing else changes, we're looking at about $1.6 million at the end of December. So that's what we have for cash projections. And the line of credit renewal with Washington State Bank is due at the end of August. Margaret and Lori are submitting the bank documents this week, so that should be behind us pretty soon. But to your earlier celebration, liquidity is good. We didn't tap in line of credit at all last year, and we didn't do it much in year 1 either. But yeah, school's in a good spot.
Well, because you know that there are organizations that live off line of credit, and it's a shell game, and they're paying their people with line of credit and trying to pay it off, and which is impressive.
All right. Questions for Brian? Good.
Just kudos to the whole team.
Yeah.
Well, Lori did some magic with the insurance, which is fantastic.
So moving on to the president's report, and I really don't have anything to report other than just to say that the board does continue to meet in closed session after the regular board meetings to discuss on-campus plans. We are moving as fast as we can to figure this out, and just appreciate everyone's patience as we work through this, and we hope to have some sort of a announcement that we can make in terms of the direction we're headed by this fall. So stay tuned. So on to action items, and we'll skip over the survey one and go right to enrollment policy revisions and updates.
Great, so you saw the revisions that are in need of approval this evening. Again, it comes down to timing, actually. We, rather than run the lottery for new enrollment on February 1st, we're going to delay to March 1st. Again, to avoid the renewal for returning students right away in January when we're sort of settling back into returning from an extended break. And then to avoid trying to do enrollment open houses and marketing in the holiday season, we think that pushing that to March will be advantageous. We also don't want to push beyond March because that March still keeps us ahead of kind of the admissions period or time frame that area independent parochial and private schools utilize. So we're going to give this a go, pending your approval, to just alter our timing of things a little bit. Nothing else as far as how everything works is changing. It's purely a revision to the timing of how it all rolls out. So I'm requesting an approval on that enrollment policy.
Okay. Would someone like to motion to approve the revised enrollment policy?
All motion.
Second?
Tim, a second.
Any further discussion, questions about it? revised enrollment policy. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay, on to the employee handbook.
So the employee handbook revisions are also fairly minor. If you recall, last year you approved the employee handbook after our legal counsel had also approved. So we still have legal counsel approval of this document as well. And we just made some minor additions, very clear statement about immediate inquiries, some clarity on record keeping, some clarity on the payroll and the timing of all of that. We also added one category of employee, an administrative 10-month as opposed to administrative 12-month, and the different structure that falls under that classification. We added a couple different clarifying things in the paid time off and the paid vacations. Again, nothing in the actual application is changing. It's just we cleaned up the language in an effort to be more clear to employees and reduce the questions that they were having because our language maybe wasn't as clear as it read to us on the first go. We added information about the retirement plan as a part of the benefits package, and a statement about medical coverage, COBRA, if the need were to arise. But on the whole, just a couple different clarifying things and additions because of our retirement plan and whatnot. So this would be, upon your approval, this would be presented to returning staff as well as new hires mid-August when we work to have our in-service and our onboarding for new hires and returning teachers. So I request for your vote of approval on that.
Would someone like to motion to approve the employee handbook, revised employee handbook?
So.
Second?
Yep, seconds.
Any questions or comments?
Is the, on page 11, the 24 paycheck option, having the 4 paychecks paid the last day of June, is that how you cleaned everything up this past year? So there were
No, that's actually new. They just ran, knowing the way we do things, they just ran all the additional payrolls before, so it all hit and ran. It's still sent in the month that it was intended to send. But to that point, the change to choose or opt into the 12-month breakout of your salary, but have your final paycheck include in lump sum the next 2 months is just the more efficient way of doing it. So we're moving forward with that. And employees opt in to that, whether they want that to receive their payment over the 21 pay periods or that 24 with that lump sum in the June, they opt into that.
Further discussion?
Vacation days don't carry over year to year, so can an employee cash that out at the end of the year as opposed to take the days?
Nope, it's either use them or not. We're not paying out.
Okay. You ready for a vote? Is there any further? Okay, it has been moved and seconded to approve the revised employee handbook. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. And the motion passes. Okay, and the last action item for the evening is the retirement plan committee resolution approval.
Yes, so we need a retirement plan committee to meet 3 times per year through the facilitation from our advisor through Francis Investment, and that this committee is put together to look at and evaluate the options that are within the plan recommendation was made to reach out to community members and those that might advise, and be able to contribute to a conversation of ensuring that our retirement plan opportunities are as strong as they can be for the benefit of our employees. So myself and Lori Kari sit on the committee, as well as Mr. Sui Wong, who is a Baird investment banker, and he has children of his niece attend here. And then Mr. Ray Thomas works as a VP for his company as well. And then board member Tom Brannigan has agreed to be present on that committee as well. And so I simply need you as the board to give authorizing permission and thereby relinquish your own obligation or responsibility to this committee under the guidance of our advisor from the Francis Group.
Would someone like to motion to approve the resolution to create this committee for the retirement plan?
No, abstain.
Abstain?
You said the motion, right?
Accept the
You're
motion.
just abstaining
Just
from voting?
abstaining.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay.
Motion?
I'll motion.
I'll second. Any discussion?
Can you provide some high-level items of what this committee would be discussing in the meeting?
The investment portfolio of the plan as a whole.
Okay.
It's simply a review of what that investment portfolio contains and whether or not it's prospering the plan on the larger scale, and that it's working to serve the best interests of the employees who are investing in it. So it's just
So
a 3 times a year
The
review.
investment choices within the plan, essentially.
Right.
Okay. So if the committee were to want to change the plan, like to a different provider, that come back to that board for approval.
Through my leadership report. But I don't think board approval was necessary to choose the current provider for the plan. So I would report to you conversation of the committee and then inform you of the opportunity to switch to a different provider at the recommendation of the committee and let you know what the decision was.
Or how about the retirement is a function of the overall compensation of the faculty, right?
Of their percentage
Right,
investment.
right. So would those decisions be made by the board?
What decisions?
The whole compensation aspects? I guess those weren't before either.
No, those are
I would
operational
say no.
matters.
Can I weigh in on this?
Yeah.
My understanding in Francis, in full disclosure, we've done some comms work with them, and they're actually our provider in a very similar capacity. And a lot of what this has to do with is the legal obligation that LCCA has to work with ideally an independent fiduciary, so it's not swayed in one way or the other, that, interests of the organization don't outweigh the interests of the people that are investing the money. So a lot of it has to do with that. So, Francis is doing this for hundreds of companies and making recommendations on funds and allocations, and a lot of it has to do with just legally kind of being in touch with what Francis is recommending and making decisions eyes open. So for example, at Brannigan, we have 3 owners of the company that weigh in on this, but nobody else in the leadership team does.
Okay. Are there upcoming decisions committee you need to be making in the short term?
This committee?
Yes.
No. Because we just established the plan, we'll review at the end of this quarter.
Okay.
It's 3 times a year, so it'd probably be closer to November, December that we'll have our first
So there will be, the committee will publish minutes and there will be a report to the board after those meetings happen 3 times a year.
Through me, because it's not a board committee,
Okay, I understand.
it's a retired plan committee. So I'll report with the leadership report within the meeting.
Okay, I better understand now.
Okay. Makes sense to me. Any other questions? We're ready to vote?
Yep.
So we have Thomas abstaining. It has been moved and seconded to approve the retirement plan committee resolution. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. The motion passes. And with that, we are actually concluding this portion of the meeting, and would someone like to make a motion to go into closed session under Wisconsin State Statute 19.851E to discuss the purchasing of public properties in which competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session?
So motion with a short time out in between. Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. And the motion passes, and we are now in closed session.
Thanks for coming.
51 minutes.